Good.
Yeah. Is Nick with you?
Hey, Scott. How are you?
Hey, good, good. Thanks for joining, guys. Let me know when you're settled in. We'll get going here.
Okay, we should be good, I think.
Okay.
Hi, Jeff. Hi, Nick.
Hi, John. How are you doing?
Good. Good, good. Hey, before we get into the stuff that you guys really care about, just a couple quick questions. I'll keep reminding us, but if we should, decide if we're serious about making a return trip in January at some point soon, for travel and everything, and then not that we need a decision today, but we want to keep it front and center, and then also just keep us pushing on that developer. I know Scott's got the feelers out there, and we've got some interest, and so I just need to keep pushing that. And then I'm also hoping that we can kind of get some timelines for, maybe this will be part of the conversation. I haven't talked to Scott about it, but I'm not sure what our kind of plan is to do these wire schemes and mock-ups and stuff, what our process there, but that's all part of what's being paid up front for Lindsay. And so, maybe when we're gonna start to set some timelines for us to provide those. Maybe it's January with this meeting. I don't know, but I feel a little up in the air about what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, I'm even a step behind you. Before we can answer that, I'd like to get some questions answered. That's what we hope to do in this meeting. And that can help determine all the other stuff as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll be good. But duly noted.
So I have an answer for you on the January date because I assumed we would be asking that question today. And Amalia's not here, but we talked a little while ago, and we're good for the January 3rd, 4th. Was it the 3rd and 4th? Yeah. The 2 days that we agreed upon. Yeah, the 3rd and the 4th.
Okay.
We're good.
So we have the green light for that.
Okay, excellent. Scott, that gives us almost a month to get some really good mock-up and wire schemes done. Is that reasonable for you at this stage?
Yeah, let's have our meeting first. We always do this. We always say, let's get the details, and then I can be very specific. But I need more details. Okay. All right. So, Nick, I saw that invitation with Dennis that you put out there. So that's great. I'm going to try to connect with him next week. I'll send out a response email to that today, because we do have quite a few questions, as we realized, in regard to how they're going to do, how JJ is going to need some special functions. So that'll be good. What I wanted to do.
And then.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Keeping in mind, Scott, any answers you get from them, our goal is to build it in a generalized sense.
Okay.
Because even though JJ's is the one that will be using it immediately, the high school should be shifting over to offering more of these types of opportunities. So I just want to make sure that it's built flexible.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And then for you, the earlier in the week, the better for them, because the closer you get to Friday, the more you will lose Bernadette and Eric, some other people that aren't really working after Friday.
Okay, so Monday, Tuesday is probably the best target, huh?
Those would be ideal for you if you want answers back. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and we certainly do. So good. All right. Well, I will send that email out after our meeting here today. That's good. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to kind of get into the particulars about some of this data. We cast the vision, And now what I've got to do is I've got to understand a little deeper of from a data standpoint how it's going to come together. And that typically brings up some gaps that we didn't think about. So it would be a good process just to kind of go through this if that's okay with everybody.
Sounds good.
Okay. So there's let's just start kind of dissecting our graduate profile. We have a set number of credits, and a lot of these hopefully are just going to be real simple questions. How are we going to know how many credits are required for each content area, and does it differ from student to student?
Well, we thought that, so the first half of the question, we thought that the designation by way of wherever the counselor is selecting for that learner, the specific details that tell the system what college and whether it's a university track or just the minimum requirements. We were going to have them designate that somewhere for the learner in their one-on-one sit-downs, and then that would tell the system all of the rules that it needs. The second part of the question, I'm going to have Jeff answer, though.
Yeah, well, part of the answer to that question is all of that is available in Aries. If you want to pull it from that, they currently, Aries shows the graduation requirement. It actually shows it grade level by grade level, which currently I think are the same all the way through. But in Aries, it also shows whether the counselor has selected regular graduation track or university prep track as well, if you want to pull that from there. Or could it set it up where all that can be entered into Empower directly, whichever you think's best.
Okay, so depending on the track that is determined by a counselor, that will vary the number of credits a student needs or is required to achieve to graduate?
No, they still have the same number. What happens when they're in university track is there are more required in the area of science and math and foreign language, and therefore they have less required in the general elective area. So it just kind of moves them around.
Okay, so is it really simple like that? Like there's basically 2 credit designations. One is for your general track and one is for the university track.
Right.
And if you choose the university track, it's always going to be X number of credits. And if you choose the regular track, it's always going to be an alternate number of credits.
Yeah, the total credits is the same for both, but the content areas that the credits are required in changes.
The content area, the credit requirements by content area changes.
Right.
But the overall credits remain the same.
Right.
Okay. So what we've got to do is we've got to track this credit by content area and student, I guess. And so ultimately, up here somewhere, there's going to be just almost like a hard-coded number of credits. And down here, it's going to end up changing depending on what track they take. Like for math, I might not have 40, I might have 45 because I'm doing a university track.
You know, actually for math, it's 20 for graduation track and 30 for university track.
So yes, your answer is yes.
Okay. And at the end of the graduation cycle, they're still spending the same amount of time, right? They're still, because this is all, credit is all time-based. So that what that means is they're still all full-time in school. It's just a matter of where they focus their attention. Is that right?
I think so, if I'm understanding what you said right.
Okay. Yeah.
So our credit is not time-based, it's completion-based.
Right. So I could get 3 courses of credit in math in 1 year, right? No problem. I mean, realistically,
Correct.
probably no, but if I could, there's nothing stopping me from it from a rule standpoint. Is that right?
Yeah, hypothetically, there's nothing stopping you. That's the concept that we have to stick to in this to make sure that it stays of our pedagogy, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like the vehicle that we built for the English thing below on purpose, showing that the learner did a project, getting some credit in a different course, even though they're not even in that course, they're already proficient in that target.
Okay. Can you tell me, Jeff, the number of credits that a student is required regardless of track?
Yes, it's 220.
220, okay. And coming from Aries, like you said, we will know what the credit requirement is for each content area?
It's in Aries, yes.
And how early do we know that? Like, if I'm a ninth grader first semester, am I going to be able to get something out of Aries to know what graduation requirements are going to be for each content area? Even though I understand it may change in the future, but how early can I be able to produce this profile?
It's always in there. The only thing that would vary would be if they switched them from the graduation track to the university prep track, and that could be done at any time.
Okay. Okay.
The graduation requirements are in there. The requirements table is related to a grade level as a whole.
Okay. So I would let's take the hardest scenario, which is a freshman on day one of semester one. So would I be able to see for all 4 years of high school what's going to be a number of credits required for each content area?
Yes.
Okay. And there's a table in Aries that's going to tell me all that, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And like we say, that could be subject to change, but if they change it in Aries, and if we're relying on Aries, then we can update it here as well. That's
You've
good.
got the full table. What happens if they change into the university track is it just applies into a different spot on the table.
A different. Help me understand. When you say table, are you referring to what we're looking at here, or a table in Aries, or what's a table?
It's a requirements table in Aries.
Yeah. Okay. So it'll just land them in a different. And that's good. That's good. The next question is in regard to, we had hard coded. Oh wait, one last question on the other point as far as getting this stuff out of Aries. Who's the best person to talk to get those tables? Is that going to be Deb?
Yeah, she would be the best one. I could get them for you, but she would be better.
Okay, yeah, whoever can get the info, that would be good. We just need to be able to get that. I imagine it's going to be pretty simple. We've got a student ID, a content area ID, I hope, some way to identify a content area, and then I guess just a credit number. Is that right? Number of credits?
Well, like I said, the requirements table is attributed to an entire grade level, not to individual students.
Oh, it's an entire grade level, and then it's going to be broken out by either university path or general path. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. So there must be another table that simply flags this student is university and this student is general, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. The next piece is, I imagine Aries also states how many credits a student has earned. Is that right?
Yes, that's from the transcript table.
Right. So here's the next little piece of difficulty is when we get a transferring student who gets credit in a course that may not be instantly, or that wasn't in a TBR in Empower because they've never were enrolled in that class. What's the best scenario to manage that kind of situation?
The best scenario would be to have a method of inputting it into Empower.
Okay. And again, I wonder, since the data is probably already there in Aries, we could just probably transfer it over, right? Just do an import of some sort.
But yeah, what they do when they put it in Aries is they put it in with one of our course numbers, and that tells Aries where it goes in the graduation requirements.
Okay. Because what I gotta do. Go ahead.
Would Empower be able to read the course number, because those are already associated with Empower anyway, and it would be absorbing the scores placed from Aries into that course number in Empower by the Aries State automatic designation?
Yeah, I think all of that's true, except I don't know about an automatic designation. As long as in Aries we have a list of courses that the student has credit for, I can do a comparison with the courses that we have in Empower, and whatever the gap is, I can just bring over from Aries.
Yeah, or it could be even easier is that in Aries it lists the school they receive the credits for. So if they receive credits from any school other than ours, it would know that would be one it would need to grab.
Oh yeah, okay. I like that as well. Is there a case when let's say they got a D in English 9? Are they going to take English 9? Do you require them to take English 9 to get those proficient?
No, if they have satisfied the requirements to receive credit at their previous school, we grant them credit.
Okay. All right, so then that would work because there'll never be any duplication. We could just look at Aries. If the course comes from another school, we can pop it in here. Okay. I like that a lot. The next thing is how am I going to know what the default courses should be for each content area?
Well, we know which courses are required of all learners and which spots they've got choices. It could be done in a list, a spreadsheet, or whatever way would meet your needs.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, that's what I was hoping to hear. And on the selections, just like you said, we'll have a list of options there. And so I understand that only the counselor can actually activate a course from a selection. That's probably a poor way to say it, but you get what I mean, right?
Well, if one of those selections appears on their schedule, if there are a way for the graduation profile to pull that information, that would be good.
Okay, that's good. So I'm going to have the hard-coded courses here. Plus, I'm going to look and see if in the student's schedule, are there any courses that that are above and beyond the hard coded, and if so, I'm going to add those here based on course IDs.
Both selection required things would have a set of optional courses to select. If
Right.
any of those options on their schedule, that means they selected it.
Yep. Okay, I like that. I like that. It's very good. Very good. On the GPA, is there any special logic for doing that? There's a pretty simple standard GPA calculation where you take the credits multiplied by the score earned. I forget all the pieces, but there's a real general way. Then there comes variations like weighed-in and who knows, honors.
Yeah, it's just that. It's the number of credits times the score earned, and then your total of all that is divided by your total credits. But we do have weighted classes. But in your course playlists, you do have a spot where we can tell you whether it's a weighted class, right?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Okay, so that's good. And I forget, do we have the multiplier in there? What if it's weighted, or do we just assume it's like a 1.15 or something?
Weighted, they get an additional point. So a 3.0 counts 4 towards their GPA, a 3.5 or a 4 count 5.
Okay. Okay, so just add 1. It's just a simple rule.
Right.
Okay, yeah, I like that. Can you help me? I remember we talked. Well, we had a lot of ideas about this section up here. IUSD grad, career readiness, university. I remember Heather. I think it was Heather didn't want to show these various avenues, but I think Lana did. Can we just kind of rehash this? What we should be doing up here?
Basically, what they're saying is that whether they're seeing graduation requirements or university requirements would be automated based on the selection in Aries.
Yes.
So you don't need a tab between the two.
Right.
And then career readiness is not really a different track. How career readiness applies to the graduation requirement is the pathway they've chosen becomes part of their requirement. So there needed to be a selection to tell what their pathway is, and then that, whatever they select, that makes a difference in what their options are in one of their areas.
Okay.
They were saying that shouldn't be a separate tab. It's all intertwined within the profile itself.
Okay, so I need to understand the path then. So how do right now I have no idea what path a student is on or really how it's supposed to affect this. Help me understand, like maybe from the perspective of Aries, what does a path do in Aries?
One of their graduation requirements is called career/college prep courses. And there's a 7-course requirement there, which gets you up to the total of 22. Within that 7-course requirement, you're required to take a sequence of 3 courses that build upon each other in one of the approved pathway areas. So 3 of the 7 courses have to be a 3-course sequence in their pathway.
Okay, so is it as simple as I really will know the pathway because I will know their scheduled courses? just trying to think, do I need to do something special for pathways, or is it, is a pathway basically still a university or grad with custom selection of courses?
It is a university or grad with a custom selection of courses, yes.
Okay, so within areas, I'm going to know if it's a university or if if the student's doing university or LUSD graduate, and from, I guess, a year-to-year standpoint, I'm going to know what their courses are that I can fill this out. Do I have to do anything more when it comes to pathways? Do I have to anticipate all 4 years? If a kiddo selects a pathway in ninth grade, do I have to anticipate all the courses that they're going to be enrolled in all the way through the last semester of their senior year?
Well, I think it would function most smoothly if there were a place in here where you could note the pathway. And then once you've noted the pathway, it knows what your options are for the 3 courses to complete that.
Okay. Okay. So, again, in some place, imaginaries, each pathway has a list of courses that are required or that are in that pathway, right?
Yes, it would either have the 3 courses required for that pathway, or there could be options within those 3 courses. But the options would be set for that pathway, what they can do to fulfill the pathway.
Okay. I see. So I've got another wrinkle on selection required. I can either have just a wide open list of all kinds of math courses, or if you're in a pathway, that list becomes limited to just courses that are optional within that pathway. Is that right?
Well, the pathway is really in the elective area. It's not in math, science, English, any of those.
Okay.
What they call it.
So let's say foreign language. Um, if I don't have a pathway in foreign language, I imagine I can have a larger set of courses to select from. However, if I do have a designated pathway, that selected list becomes limited based on the pathway. Is that true?
If you've selected a pathway, then 3 of your 7 elective courses are limited by the pathway requirement.
Is the student selecting the pathway within Empower, or is that something that is a conversation they have with the counselor, and then Empower just knows that they're on X pathway?
Yes, a conversation with the counselor.
Okay. So are we going to want to allow students to select all kinds of different pathways and see what they look like, or they're just going to have that conversation with the counselor, and this page will already be primed to display content from that pathway, that one pathway's perspective?
That was the goal that was articulated when everybody was here. The latter, sorry.
Okay, good. Well, I mean, at least that makes it simpler on our side. So up above, I'm going to have IUSD grad or university. I suppose if a individual has already selected a pathway, I would just have a hard-coded piece of text up there that says your pathway, and it would be X, whatever that is, because it's already been set by the counselor. And then that will affect the selections that they can see. And that's probably all it'll do. Sounds like the pathway.
With the caveat that the counselor could change the selection.
Yeah, absolutely right. And again, the source for this data, I'm imagining, is still Aries, or do we want that to be a function within Empowered? to change pathways.
Yeah, there isn't really a good place in Aries to put the pathway. Aries has some different career type of things in there, but they don't really match well with the pathway options.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. Let's see. Okay, so, and again, we had two views of showing LUSD grad or university and university at the same time. Do we want to, here's our options. We know exactly what the student is, which one of those that they are, and we can default it to that and give them the option to view the other. Whereas the opposing viewpoint was, no, it's going to confuse the kids. Just show them the path, the graduation path they're on, and that's it.
That was expressed in the meeting, that if they had the option to switch, they might switch and then forget they switched and then be concentrating on the wrong option after that. So they did talk about having them just see whichever one selected in Aries.
What we can do is we can always, like if they go out of it and come back in, it will always default to the actual graduation path they're on, or whatever we call those. So if they toggled it here, they basically just get a quick view of what. Because I think what the pro was of having that is I might be just doing an LUSD grad, but if I toggle over to university and I see I only need to take maybe 2 courses or whatever it might be, I might do that. I just might do that. And so that was the advocate side of it, to let them see both.
Yeah, there's definitely value to that as long as it defaults back to the right one next time they're in there, yeah.
Okay. Does that feel good to you, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to make, I don't think that we're going to do, we're still living between two systems, right? I mean, that's it's the inevitable piece. It can't be avoided. So I think that we're going to be okay either way, Scott, because this is a distinct improvement with a lot more automaticity than anything that currently exists. Everything that we're talking through is living in people's brains over there right now, which is not okay. And so we're giving everybody more flexibility, but I think as long as it seems like it's going to be an easy workflow and an understandable workflow for the people when we actually tell them what needs to be done, that's kind of my last lens.
Okay. All right. Okay, that sounds good. Now we talked about if you click into this, that you would see all the standards that you that are required in this course, and you'd also see your progress in them. Unfortunately, in my notes, that's all I had. But I recall that I thought we talked about something more. Can you help me with what should happen if we drill down on this? If I click on that,
it was going to take you to the target browser for that course.
Right.
And not the target browser with the entire year's worth of the course, but specifically not having to do that extra filter, the target browser for that specific course.
Okay. I've got that. So we're going to show just the standards for the course. Was there anything else that we were doing there? When it drills in, do they
we talked about the potential of that when you clicked on that, giving you options, like instead of just taking you to the target browser for that course, pulling it up, like when you click on a learner's image right now, you get a selection of different options. And we were saying potentially you get a selection of the option of the homepage for that course. So the learner's homepage for that course, the target browser for that course, or something else, and we never really came up with the something else.
Okay, so I can have like a fork in the road here. From here, I can just look at like the target browser, which is just a detail of the standards and my progress in it. Or I could actually go to the instruction side of it, where I'm actually engaged in this course, and I can see all the activities and playlists that have been assigned. Is that what we're saying?
That was the concept, yes.
Okay.
Are we missing something from your side of things?
No, I was just thinking we had some innovation there, and the only thing I remembered or put down in my notes was the target browser part. But the homepage part is good. That's good. There's really not a whole lot more you could really do from this vantage point or would want to do. You'd want to see the target.
Yeah, it's already going to be defining a lot of complex information, and so we want to make sure it stays pretty simplistic and yet open to getting you destination-wise in one click to a specific, or 2 clicks specifically where you want to go.
Okay, I like it. Okay. And the last thing, which we probably don't have an answer on, is going to be cum laude, right? No real clarity on how that's going to work.
What would you need in terms of clarity so that you can build it the right way from the get-go?
I'd just like to know the rules that would determine cum laude, and yeah, that's basically it. Which is everything. I need everything, is what I'm saying, Nick.
Well, and I want to give you everything because I don't want you to end up having to come back and patch us on at the end like we talked about before.
Yeah. Okay. So that's probably still a conversation they're having. I just needed to know, how do you get special designation? And it's going to be stuff like, maybe you've achieved credit, your number of credits have been achieved, and you have an overall, if you will, content area GPA of, above X. Or in this range for Magna, and this range for summa cum laude, and all that kind of stuff. I just need something. It's kind of going to be simple, I would think. It just needs to be agreed upon.
Okay, I'll ask that question.
Okay, and
I can't promise you what the answer they're going to have, but I'll ask the question.
Okay. And there was two dimensions of this. One was the cum laude status of the content area, and then it sounded like they also wanted a roll up of an overall cum laude status, which I didn't quite understand, but I thought I heard it mentioned.
I didn't get that. Is that right? Oh, okay. I didn't hear that, but Jeff did too. So.
Okay. So yeah, again, just clarity on that, because if so, we'd have like another badge or something up here to say, overall here, or I don't know. Okay. John, what are your thoughts on that?
I emailed you that requirements table, by the way.
For cum laude?
No, the requirements table.
We're not that bad.
Oh, I see it here, Jeff. Yeah, okay. So let's look at this just real quick. Credit.
You need to expand to the right more to see my notes.
Okay, let me
that last column.
Okay, here it comes. I think it comes. Various requirements. Here we go. It's gonna give me the same view. Oh. Okay. I think I did the necessary clicks required to get here. Okay, here we go. Okay. This looks like a lot of credits. I've got to get 160
Look at my
credits.
notes on the, look at my notes on the right.
Okay, I'm sorry. This table comes with the required table, the fields shown above. Ninth graders. Okay.
Only one column per grade level. It goes down, not across. And the bottom half is the university track, the top half is the graduation track.
Okay, so here's university, and here's just regular, right?
Right.
So math is increased. Okay, I see. Now, so I mean, 40 credits sounds like a lot. Is this 160 credits by the end of the year? What does this mean?
No. No. The reason there's 4 different columns is because if your graduation requirements change, the next incoming freshman class might have different requirements than the previous one.
Oh.
Your full 4-year requirement, depending upon what grade you're in right now.
So credit 1 is basically, okay, you probably said this. Credit 1 applies to, I see.
The ninth grader's full 4-year requirement, not their 9th grade requirement.
Right, I got you. So this is the entire high school career for English. If you're a sophomore, you've got to get 40 total credits.
Right.
Okay. And for the most part, it's the same across, but as you said, this gives us the ability to, what happens as years go by? Like, I guess once somebody graduates, it's pretty finalized. What I'm afraid of is, consider this like credit 1 through credit 4, and then we have another series of credit 1 through credit 4. This would be for the 2018 school year. This would be for the 2019, or maybe add it for 2022. I'm just trying to break it. I'm coming up with the most difficult scenario. Is there a scenario where we have to consider years, or when a kiddo graduates, we get a pretty final record and we don't really need to worry? Because I guess here's a better way to say it. I'm sorry. I'm kind of searching around here, but I have this year somebody graduates and credit 4 is 40. Next year, credit 4 changes to 45. And
So basically,
go ahead.
So basically, once you enter high school, your graduation requirements are set. They don't change. When a change in graduation requirements ever happens, it applies only to the new 9th graders. So your requirements follow you all the way through. So whatever credit 1 shows this year, it's going to move over to credit 2 next year. It's going to move over to credit 3 the following year, and it's going to move over to credit 4 the following year. It stays
Okay.
with the kids.
So let's see. Let's okay. Again, the worst scenario is let's say that we're into the 3rd year of this credit change into 45. So it would read 45 and 40. These kiddos graduate. The 45 changes over here to credit 4 to 45. And for some reason in the next year, you need to grab something from the last year's graduating class, but now credit 4 says 45. What do I need? I probably need to do something to make sure that that when, because that's a scenario that eventually will happen.
when you first enter high school, your requirements attached to you, those don't ever change. The only thing that would change is if you move back and forth between graduation track and university track. But your number of credits in each spot would never change for you. Same thing as in college, where whatever
Okay.
catalog you enter, that's for catalog.
Okay, then elsewhere, I need to create a separate table, and I need to grab this value and explicitly tie it to the student. Because the scenario I just mentioned, if I only relied on this, it would break it. Never mind. I got what I needed. You told me the key rule is whenever I'm assigned a credit, it follows me all the way through, with the only exception if I toggle between general and university, right?
Correct.
Okay. It's perfect. That is good. Okay. Anything else on this, guys? Because that is the functionality in its totality. I don't comments pane. I don't remember what we did for. Oh, this is just Ben's comments. Okay. I thought he was making it so that we're adding.
No, we don't want any kind of comments right there, please.
Okay.
My question here would be, the areas in Empower now don't come close to matching those areas in the graduation requirements. Would we need to make adjustments of our content areas and what courses are in what to make them match the graduation requirement profile? Or would there be a way that it could figure it out without that?
Where do we get a bunch of mismatches with content areas, Jeff?
Well, look at your table again, see what the areas are.
Okay.
They don't match our content.
Okay, that's probably a good thing here to do. Okay. Oh, freshman core, that doesn't exist.
Career college prep, pathway completion. And they got life science separate from physical and earth science. You got world history separate from U.S. history, separate from government economics. And some adjustments could be made. Aries, some adjustments could be made in Empower if those need to be exactly the same.
I see. Huh. Well, yeah, it's okay. This is going to be, I think, a direct reflection on how we set up the target browser, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If the areas in the target browser need to match these areas for the graduation profile, then we'd have to make some adjustments. And some of the adjustments could probably be made in the target browser areas, and some adjustments could probably be made in areas, like the physical versus science could probably be combined in areas, that kind of stuff. But we have to change the content areas on the target browser if they need to match this.
Okay. I love that, because that's all your work. I don't have to do anything, right? You would either break up science into life science and physical earth, or you would combine these in areas to just science, right?
Yeah, we'd have to cause the target browser area to be career college prep or something like that. But that's just what I was checking. If you think it would work best if that exactly matched between Aries and Empower.
Oh, I think it has to. Because
solve our goal problem. Would that solve our goal problem, Scott? In terms of, like, they've thrown so many things into electives, other electives, they can't use the goal dashboard for other electives, even though they might have like 3 different courses in there, because it's aggregating all the courses.
would actually put more courses together in that career college prep area.
Yeah, that's not going to work then.
Yeah.
Because we have to do away with the problem, that being a problem, Scott. It's only something that we're experiencing at the high school, clearly, but the category of other electives holds so many different courses that can be taken at the same exact time that it makes the goal dashboard without purpose.
It can be solved by templates. That would be a lot of templates.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I'm not understanding the problem here. What is it that we're solving?
So it's just something to keep in the back of our minds as we make this decision. When they're making the goals for the learners, right? And the goal is designated to a content.
Yeah.
That content of other electives is housing so many things that can be taken at the same exact time.
Yeah.
That there is no goal specifically to content across 3 different periods potentially.
That's the same for music. That's for foreign language or several areas like that. Industrial arts, ag.
So we can't use the goal dashboard in that way, and I'm bringing it up now because however we organize this should be organized in the same way, right?
Yeah, and that's a key problem with high school is those electives for Payson, just like you said. So now I heard you. I think Jeff said you mentioned templates, or we could combine that with breaking these out more. Is that kind of what we're mulling over here?
I think we have to break them out more. I don't see another choice. I mean, other than Jeff's solution of templates would work, but that would be a crap load of templates to have to manage.
It would be.
Break them out more would break the graduation profile, because you wouldn't have your career college prep area that you send courses in. You'd have a million different.
So is there a way while you're developing this, Scott, to have the graduate profile aggregating a number of different categories into that, still being one category in the graduate profile, but then allowing each of those individual categories to be denoted in the goal dashboard or selected in the goal dashboard?
When we use the word categories, we're not talking about content areas. We're talking about literal categories within a content area, right? Topics.
What are they broken into?
Content areas.
Content areas.
But in order to separate it out by content areas so the goal dashboard work, that would be 100 content areas.
So the problem is that the goal dashboard needs to go 2 layers deep, but the graduate profile, we want to look at the first layer. If we have 20 different, just to keep it a nice number, even though Jeff said 100, if we have, we'll go in the middle. If we have 60 different courses, not courses,
Possible sequences.
50 different possible sequences that each could have their own goal meter because they might be taking multiple of those at the same time. So they need that extra distinction. But all of those 60 fall under the category or the content of career readiness. Would that work? Because that's that extra layer of distinction for the goal dashboard versus the aggregate view of that for the graduate profile. Does that mess things up?
Yeah, because I just don't. I'd like to avoid it if we can, because I'm creating this additional scaffolding to kind of bring all these things in alignment to make that work. Which is, if we need to do it, we need to do it. But on the onset, I'd like to see if there is a more elegant way we could do this. So right now, the big problem is that we have a single content area that is inclusive of so many electives that there's no way we can set a goal, right? I mean, outside of templates, but we said, well, that's a lot of templates, right?
Yes.
Here's another way of maybe doing this. I'm just thinking out loud. What if I considered that we probably don't have the data, but what if I used the courses they're enrolled in, or if I could anticipate the path of the elective path that they would be on, and consider a student's electives content area to just be made up of whatever they're enrolled in, elective courses they're enrolled in.
Would that still give us the flexibility with the goal meters that we want?
What it would do is, right now, you're setting goals through a level, right? And the level's made up of a number of standards. And you're saying, I want them to be at the end of level 10 by the end of the school year. So that's kind of how it works. So what this might do is I don't think it would break it up into levels. It would just be, this is the elective requirements, and I want you to get through 33% of your elective requirements. And it's going to look at, you can either do it by credit to try to break it up into different ways. Again, if we had it tied to courses, but the number of standards, the important thing is the number of standards would be diluted or dissolved into just the standards out of this massive content area that the kiddo needs, instead of the hundreds and hundreds of standards potentially that are in the elective content area.
Let's take that as the case, right, Scott? And let's pretend like we actually know what this is going to look like, what Learner 3.0 homepage is going to look like. Because one of the things we said that could quite possibly and most likely be on that homepage for the learners is that growth meter for whatever course that we're talking about, right?
Right.
So if that's the case, though, that's going to, let's say I have 3 of those courses that fit under that giant umbrella that we're talking about. It's going to show I could be totally bombing, one of those and doing really great in 2 of those. It's just going to skew the data. It's not going to be accurate unless I'm picturing all of this wrong.
Yeah.
Because it's not designated to those specific targets that we're talking about. Now it's designated to a pool of a lot of them.
Right now it's designated to a pool of a lot of them. I think a safe bet is to say we would like to limit it to just the standards that the student is actually responsible for. Our mechanisms are going to be to either know that by the course, the elective courses they are assigned, or if there's some means by a pathway. I don't pretend
Let's
to
go
know.
down the course path.
What's that, Nick?
Yeah. So the question was, if you've got 3 different courses that you're taking at the same time that belong in this giant category, could you have a separate goal meter for each of those 3 courses?
So we literally do need a course pacing, and maybe not so much a content area pacing.
Only for the high school, but I don't see how we're going to work around this for the high school without that. I mean, I've tried to conceptualize it in many different ways, but that's where even the creative solution that you came up with, it gets us a better picture than we could get now, but it still potentially disillusions admin, learning facilitators, parents, and kids, because we could be accruing three different types of targets for different courses, even though I'm only really doing really well in two of them, and it's going to feel like that meter is going to stay the same for all three of those courses if we don't do it course specific, no?
Yeah.
Or at least like category specific to those courses in whatever natural organization makes sense.
Okay. So this would be a significant change, but I almost think it's we're getting kind of strong armed into it, like it has to happen. So we probably need course pacing, right? Course goal setting.
Because that's how they're treating it now anyway.
Okay.
So, like, to give you the concept, right? So I met with Brett earlier this year, and essentially because the content, the way that it's built per credit, is the year-long course. That's what we've talked about, right?
Yeah.
But if they built their goals based off of that premise, then 1.0 for them over the level of a semester course would actually mean that they could never meet the expectation, because they would be doing twice the amount of work than is even offered to them for that content area right now. It would be like them doing A and B when they're only in A. And so they've had to micromanage their goals now to say basically, 0.5 equals 1 in terms of what we actually expect by the end of this course.
Yeah.
And that would, building it this way per course would actually allow us to look at it just at the course view, and they wouldn't have to do that all that accommodating.
Okay.
They could just say 1 equals completion of this course.
Yeah. All right. I think I like this. The reason why I was, when we first designed this, I didn't like course-based stuff, because I could be doing excellent in a course pace, but going to miss graduation by a mile. Because those two things don't necessarily, they wouldn't necessarily be required to match, right? Because I could be, let's just hypothetically say I'm a junior taking intermediate math 1 or language 9. I mean, and then the goal of that course is for me to finish A and B, or finish both A and B by the end of the year, and I'm doing great. I'm going to finish A and B of language 9 easily by the end of my junior year. Well, that's a problem, because I'm way behind for graduation, right?
Right.
But that was the reason why I always kick back on it, because we never had this. We never had a graduate profile. So now we can set those course the context of that course pacing very nicely, because the biggest thing I was afraid of is we got a parent who's looking like their kid is doing great, and it's smiles all the way until 3 weeks before graduation, and their kid's a year away from graduating, right? Well, of course, that would be the worst scenario. But between these two new tools, this new tool here, and maybe add in a grad or a course pace, we would avoid that sticky situation altogether.
Yeah, I totally see the concern on the front end as to why you wouldn't do that without the other piece that we're designing right now, because it could be very confusing.
Yeah. Okay.
It also goes to what we haven't talked about, but what we've talked about before, just touching on, like, how do we get this down at the K-8 level? What does that look like?
Mm-hmm.
Because that would actually help us say, it would help us do that designation that is confusing for parents and learners right now regarding their pacing. Around, you have those two directions to choose, which you just talked about, right? You have the pacing that says you're doing well right now, and You have the pacing that says you're not doing well overall, though. And there's never been a way to clearly distinguish between those two things, which causes a very, very hard fork in the road when we're talking about things like progress reports. But
Yeah.
if we build out a graduate profile lens for the K-8s that emulates the TK through 8 content in each of the content areas, almost mirroring a course-based type of thing, but clearly it's per content level, per content, that would then give you that same view. The overall pacing of a learner in their growth towards mastering content over their K-8 career, as well as then digging in on the homepage and seeing their current pace in the class that they're in right now.
Yeah. I like that. It makes us, it allows us for a high school dashboard for a student to be probably kind of cool. So we would be able to show a course pace and then maybe an overall kind of graduation pace, and then for each content area, and then the in context, the very next activities or things that they need to dig into right now to affect these.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be Ben's birthday widget.
You never know.
He loves that birthday widget, man. This is going to change education right here.
He's clearly got some birthday celebration frustrations in his past.
I think he read that well. There's a little window into his soul. Okay. Okay. I think that just gives us a really wonderful view of taking your pulse, right? A kid all being able to take their pulse, a parent being able to see the pulse of what's going on in each content area.
Yeah, and if there's anything that I actually agreed with Heather on for the 2 hours she was with us, it was the fact that, yeah, our kids really do need to have a much clearer picture of, well, we just actually only agreed upon the fact that they really need that clearer picture on the graduation status. But I think that the combination and the clean way we just described it would allow for a really clear picture of how are you doing right now and how are you doing in the overall picture of graduation.
Yeah, that's really good. That's very, 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 very good. Is it, since we're on this topic, I'd like to kind of continue with our thoughts on maybe now transition into the student page, because this was an obvious gap when we talked to the high school. They were, to make this for what they would consider, daily usable, and then to also stretch further and, have their dream scenario. There's a lot of work to do, obviously. I think with
yeah, but I don't know that they can articulate what their dream scenario is. Could they?
Well, no, they were very generic in terms. We would constantly use simple and transparent. Those were the two adjectives that we got, and we would dig into that. And we really didn't get a lot of great answers, except by far, this is a great answer to both of those, right? Simple and transparent.
Sure.
Well, they need to know about their graduation. Perfect. I think this is a big win, and we all agree on that. So continuing in the theme of simple and transparent, on a day-to-day basis where a student is engaging in the work in the classroom, needing to upload work, whatever it is, what does simple and transparent look like for a high school kiddo? We mentioned, hey, course pacing along with the content area pacing, and then maybe some sort of detailed or precision in showing the various activities that would be the next things that they need to focus on. to try to just kind of keep it all in one page, and they land on it, and you just hit with something meaningful. Okay, I see my pace, I see I'm behind, and this is the very next thing I can do to affect that. I can turn my work in here as well.
Yeah, and what we're talking about is we're just specifically talking about the dashboard, right? We're not talking about the home page, or are we talking about one and the same?
Yeah, I'm thinking it's one and the same.
So are you thinking that the Learners 3.0 is actually 2 tabs? One is the home page and the other one is the graduate profile?
I think maybe so. Let's go with that and see if we break it. But I think simple. We're trying to make it simple. 2 is simpler than 3.
Yeah, and I would almost articulate. So here's where we would want to play. To me, right? So I think that's one potential, Scott, is what we've said. There's a 2-tab scenario where one is the homepage and one is the graduate profile. Mm-hmm. I think there's a 1-page scenario, Scott, where it's a homepage, and one of the widgets takes you to the graduate profile.
Okay.
So and this is to help accommodate for. I don't know. I don't want to be rash. I care what the high school says. Clearly, but I don't care if they're countering what learners need, or if the learners are saying they need this and they want this, and they're saying something different. We're going to go with the learners heavily because they're the ones that have to use it. So that's where what we're hoping for to answer some of what John's question was before. I think that we don't just want to come back with the mock-ups. I think we want to come back with a couple versions of the things we mock up so that we can get the user experience type of questions answered by staff and by learners.
Okay, I like that. I like that a lot. So
on the homepage, you might be, what you've expressed so far is I think one version of a homepage. I think another version of a homepage is to and it's hard because I'm staring at this visual that's in front of me, but essentially it's we drew it on one of those papers that you took, but it's essentially just the growth meter for that course, right? And then next to that are the 5 things that you need to do.
Okay.
But it's just really clean. Here's the course and your current pacing. Here are the next 5 things you need to do. If there's anything at the end of that, it might be just like a notifications tab that tells you, like, it just lists for you the last 5 things that you were assigned or you were scored or something like that. Just like almost like a little post message area over on the far right. I think that's a different type of scenario, but then as you scroll up and down that page, you see the courses that you're currently enrolled in.
Yep. I like that. I like that a lot. And like we said, little widgets could be like my target browser, my graduate profile. We could have just something that takes them to their progress report page. Those can be this could be all like up here, those little widgets that they're basically tabs, but it's navigation. What we're talking about is just navigation, right?
Yeah, and so when you from your developing standpoint, when you visualize that, Scott, are you saying that's a widget as in when I click on it, it changes what's down below, or that's a widget as in if I go up and grab it, I can throw it down and it sticks to what's down below?
Yeah. Okay. So that's good. That is what this was intended to be. Was I could drag this down and it would add that widget. Let me refresh my memory. What we said was widgets for learner. Here we go. Here's my notes. Learner dashboard, notifications, things that are coming due, jump back into what I worked on last, growth of learning achieved, overall graduation progress bar.
So far, we've hit all of those with what our original concepts have been up to this point.
Yeah, right. Recently scored. I guess that'd be nice on there. Pacing. Well, we did talk about this. We had these actually become something similar, I guess. I don't know. We got to tease some of this out.
Yeah, the overall, I think that it's just in how we give them options in terms of what it looks like. I think you know the concepts that they're talking about. It's nothing different than what we talked about.
Yeah. And eligibility, I don't remember how in the world we figure that, but
that was a predictability of eligibility, not the previous eligibility, by the way.
right. So
if you remember that conversation, it was more off of with the pacing that you currently have, are you on pace to be eligible at the end of this next 6-week cycle or whatever it was?
okay, and you set some benchmark of what the pacing needs to be in so many courses or content areas or something, huh?
Yeah, I would assume that even if it was a generic, really stupidly generic, basically, right? If we adjust the goal meter to mean that 1 equals, I don't know, 1 equals the course completion instead of the 0.5 that it is now, and there's 12 weeks in my course, then I would expect to have to be on pace to be at the 0.5 by the 6-week mark. So basically, the system would just be looking at how is your growth, how is your pace right now as compared to meeting 0.5 in the next 6 weeks.
Okay.
And there would be some kind of threshold there that would say this amount of threshold is okay, but as soon as you go beyond it, then you're starting to fall behind. And that's where it starts to show you an eligibility concern.
Okay.
And I'm trying to use tools that we already have in the system to designate all of that and to also then back up and provide additional context and meaningfulness to the tools themselves.
Okay, that sounds good. Hey, could you refresh my memory, Nick? How late can you go today?
I can go until 1 o'clock today.
Okay, that's good.
I say that like I have to go to the bathroom real quick, Scott. So give me like 4 minutes to run to the bathroom real quick.
Okay, good, because I need to grab my my images of all those stickies that we took. I don't have those, so we'll take a quick break.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay, thanks.
All right, Scott, I'm back whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I'm back as well. All right. So let's see here. So here are some thoughts. Which of these would we consider to be widgets, and which of these would be really kind of required? Like, the homepage has to consist of something. Like, for instance, oh yeah, go ahead.
I think that the things that we've talked about so far, right? So the course the goal meter is a non-negotiable.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it's one. I don't know if it's one widget, Scott, or not, and it might just be, a vertical bar that's pretty thick and overrides everything up at the top that takes you directly to your graduation profile, your graduate profile. Because I don't see that being like needed in every single one of the courses. So I guess I see the kind of what we described before. I see the goal meter, the next work, and the kind of messages section at the end. And when I say the messages section, that's where I would expect to see some of these pieces that they've delved out, kind of in that, I guess you can call it notification session or whatever that's at the end of that line. But whether it's overdue or something being scored, it's giving you the latest information you need to know. Those are the ones that I see as being necessary on that homepage, because the cum laude thing could be viewed. It feels like it fits more in the graduate profile than it fits having to be here. The eligibility thing might be one that somehow we want to show up, but everything else would be an option.
Okay.
There's nothing else. There's nothing else really in that list, because I think a lot of these belong with one another. I don't think they're all separate.
Right.
The only one I don't know how you do, Scott, is that jumping back to what was worked on last in that course. But I know that clearly everybody was saying that that's super important, so I shouldn't be ignoring that.
Well, what I like is you mentioned the next 5 things, and one of those items could be have a special border around it, and it's your it's the last thing that you were working on in that class.
Yeah, that would make great sense.
Yeah, so it'll be nice and simple and transparent, because we're going for simple and transparent.
Let's just use those words for everything from here on out.
I think we have to. Okay. Let me think. Okay, so I wanted to tease one more piece out that was I didn't get clarity on. So Heather was telling us that the playlist, and which is totally legitimate, because a playlist could have so many nooks and crannies with all these sub playlists and sub playlists that could be hard to navigate. She said that was too difficult for students to navigate, so some of them are just using these other tools to be able to put their content in. Well, we don't want that. And so then we suggested like the 5, just show the top 5 or the next things. And then she seemed to think, well, on the other side of that, the kiddos, she wants the kiddos to always kind of be mindful of, and this, I really didn't understand this. The way that I thought I heard it was kind of the context of where they are in the playlist or something like that. And so the limitation of it didn't seem to work for her either. Can you help me tease that out?
I wish I could. I could retire if I could do that. So I think she's living in, and this is what I mean, you've seen my approach since I've come in anyway, and it's been about the features that will make things more efficient or more used or something like that, right? For instance, the search code feature. That's a Google Class feature that we had to have in here so that we could jump to one specific place.
Sure.
Now, if you're not using that feature, then you're not using something that has been built in to accommodate you and what you're asking for. So there is, and I know John refers to this as a training issue often. And I think there is a distinction between training issues and implementation issues. This is an implementation issue because we have some of the tools built into the system to do this. The other piece is this is an instructional design issue.
Okay, right.
And so the way that people are building the playlists, and these are not the ones that are vetted, clearly, but the ones that aren't vetted, that people are just building on their own, are not built with a true instructional design in mind. Therefore, they build them 60,000 clicks deep.
Okay.
I think that Heather's concept is oversimplified because the only way to do what Heather wants is to have it be an online learning experience where there's only meant to be one way for you to get this done, and that's through an online learning experience. That is literally counter to what we're saying. And so there's some deeper rooted philosophical issues that have to be worked through there that I cannot, nor is that my position to do. But I can't change that from her. So it's more about making sure that we stay true to our pedagogy at the same time as making sure that it can be used in an easier format for those people that need it to be. I see what you have built in the playlist now, and I see it being as simplistic as you want it to be, but I also see it being as in-depth as you want it to be. So to me, I don't know what you're going to do to make this more simplistic, Scott.
So one of the things they suggested is we just basically create a syllabus out of a playlist. So you're able to, we basically flatten it all out. And
I got you.
A normal syllabus, right? You've got your playlist name.
Oh, and that's interesting. Okay, so let me stop for a minute and take a deep breath, because clearly you hit something that pisses me off. So, yeah, I guess taking the three-dimensional world of a playlist. Now, and why I like this idea, Scott, is because it doesn't actually compromise the pedagogy of what we're talking about.
Right.
Because my fear is that what we're saying is, no, let's just make it a super linear playlist, because that's all I heard for the 2 hours that I listened.
Right.
And maybe that was my negative stigma that I was putting on this. But I like your concept of, no, let's take all the depth that you built in the way that you did, but then also allow us super easy access to whatever point in the road that you want to go to. That's essentially what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly right. And you can have like your.
I also like the fact that you that this might be the way that's super easy for you to go right back to where you were yesterday or wherever you ended yesterday, right? Because it's almost like you're going to make a bookmark on whatever they were on yesterday, which then is that placeholder.
Right. So in a two-dimensional flat world, they can look and see everything that's going on. They can see that they finished this, they're working on this, because we have all the statuses. I know that you're working on this. I know you've turned something in here and hasn't been responded to yet. This one, it was scored and you missed the, you were below the MAS. All of those things we can show. We just show it in a flat world.
I like it. I'm surprised that I like it, but I like it because we're building in accommodations for people that do things differently, right?
Yeah.
And I like the three-dimensional world that learners go through if they like to go through the steps in that way, and that's how the system is built now. Mm-hmm. But not to make sure I don't contradict myself, we should be allowing the option of, look, if you are the listy type of person and this resonates with you, then go here. And if this works, then hallelujah.
Yeah, and you'll be able to click on any one of these things and go to that object, and it should be.
I like that it keeps the chronological order of the playlist and the way that it was meant to be. I like that it can show you the depth of the sub playlists for the people that built things the wrong way. It really does create a clean and efficient way of managing a playlist, whether it's built right or wrong.
Yeah, I totally agree. Because I know from an instructor standpoint, you want to organize things into all these, sub playlists and all this kind of stuff. I mean, because you just kind of like things to be have some walls and some barriers, and this is my counting and cardinality. I don't want it to touch. The people who on their plate, their green beans never touch the potatoes.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. So I think this will.
I also like that you added the scoring feature into. I like that you're adding the scoring, the visualization of the score for the activity into this screen as well, because I don't think I would have naturally done that. But I think it's going to accommodate for the next request, which would be like, I need to see if that one's been done. I need to see if they did that, or if there's a score for that, or if it's pending, or if it's turned in, or.
And so I guess kind of what we would have, we really kind of changes a lot, but there would be basically like a little button you could click. And if you remember on our parent page, how it expands. If you want to drill in, it'll stay on the same page, but it'll just kind of show you all the standards. And then you can expand the standards to see all the activities. You could maybe expand this course, and it would kind of like an accordion open up and show you the syllabus, if you will.
So describe to me what that would look like to you.
Yes. Let me see.
Because I'm with you on the two-dimensional side that you built out, but I'm trying to picture it in terms of the visualization that you just described to me. Okay. I want to make sure that I think part of the beauty of the visualization that you just said, Scott, is that it is so clean and that it is easy to navigate from one view, which is why I think almost that the click down part, the hiding and unhiding part, might be extra clicks that they don't want to do.
So if we're talking about kind of like on the homepage, it would be too much information to show all of the syllabuses for all of their courses plus the other content we want to show here, in my opinion.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So this would let me do a screenshot, and I'll just kind of try to write on top of it because we're really changing a lot here. Okay, so we're going to have like the course title here, and we'll have our little meters here, and maybe our next 5, whatever goes here. But what I would like is, in order to be able to see that course or the syllabus view, because this is a course, to have some little button that you would click and it would just expand down and just show you. I got so many stuff open. No, come on. Show you this.
Yeah, I got you. I get it now.
Okay.
Yeah, and I couldn't walk down that visual journey with you, so that was very helpful. Okay.
And so, and you're not opening another page. It's just like a little accordion, and you can see it, and quick navigation, and And you got a really, I think a really powerful homepage.
Yeah, it surely gives you a lot more functionality of access than it does right now.
Absolutely. It's very, very informative with the pacing, and direct and pushing to you the most important things that you should be thinking about next, the activity, the pacing. And then you want more data, click, here's the simplest view that we could do for a playlist, and here's all your progress in it.
I mean, it's everything they're asking for, and beyond that, it's everything they're asking for, but also what feels right in terms of the model, to me, and gives a hell of a lot more clarity to our kids.
Yeah. Yeah, and hopefully they don't have to go to Canvas or whatever they're using, wikis or whatever, and can just do it all in Power.
They're using like 5 different things, but whatever. We'll deal with that when we get this done in May.
Yeah.
It's probably that birthday icon that's going to make them all come running.
Ben, he always ends up being right somehow. I never understand it. All right. Well, I feel that's a good breakthrough. I feel like excited to develop that. That's going to be fun to create.
Yeah, and at the very worst, right? To me, worst case scenario, Scott, is that we build it out with this visual in a way that they can see it and understand it, and then let them say, well, what if we just pulled this over here, or maybe we don't need this piece. That's the part that will be super meaningful. Or what if you made this the part that's visual and you didn't have to click down and this came up first? I don't know what they're going to want, what's going to be the most meaningful for them, but I think components-wise, I think we have the right ingredients.
Yeah, I do too. Now, what happens if we switch our visor and now we're thinking of a learner, but they're actually an adult learner? I would imagine most all of these things are still applicable.
Yeah, that's good. Let's walk through that. So you have now the only courses, if you will, that you see right off the bat are the 3 that you've selected as your goals. Is that fair?
Yeah, I agree. You look for your three areas here.
Okay, so we see our 3. We see our first goal and our growth meter, and then we see our I don't know, somehow we have that link that shows them the link back to the graduate profile, which is just their view of the target browser and all of their scores.
Right.
We show that, I guess the things coming up wouldn't necessarily be the next 5 things as determined by a coach giving them to them, more of just like the resources that are available, similar to those.
Mm-hmm. Suggested resources.
And then being able to see those suggested resources in some kind of a 2-dimensional format, if they wanted the click down version. Yeah.
Okay, I like that. So essentially, we kind of auto create a playlist, as it were, based on the 3 items they select. Maybe what it would be is that instead of sub playlist A, the sub playlist would be the first item they selected, and here's a list of resources for it. Second item you selected, set of resources. So you just have a quick view of all of that.
I think it's either that, Scott, or it's the generic sense of the type of media. So here's the resource. I mean, when you click down into it, here are your video-based resources. Here are your article-based resources. Here are the texts you could go buy. Here are the PD experiences. I don't know. It's just what I'm thinking.
I like that. Do we still organize those by look for? So this would be a look for in all the resources, and we could have media resources, whatever, textual, instructional video, whatever. We could have that, but be in a container for a specific look for and have those broken out in different look fors.
So I was actually thinking that we were already digging into a look for.
Okay.
So I thought that this is, once we get into one of the look fors, we see, there's two options to me that we can go, Scott. And this is where I would want, this is where having the two built out would be really nice to see. When I click into a look for, I think there's two ways to look at it. Either there's a concept or skill-based way to look at this, where we're saying there is an order to which you should kind of developmentally attack this look for. And then you go through and you list those skills with the resources that you can get to improve in that skill in this same type of manner. The flip side of that is, and more simplistic view of that is, there are these resources, and where it says sub-playlist, it just says instructional videos. Where it says sub-playlist B, it just says articles, that type of thing. I think there's two different ways, and I don't know which way is better.
No, I totally forgot that each one of our looks fors is essentially going to be a course, right?
Correct.
Okay, so yeah, what you said made perfect sense. I was thinking, it doesn't matter. I won't confuse with my confusion, but that would be perfect. You're absolutely right. So one of those little syllabuses would be for only one look for, and absolutely we could organize them by those. So now what was kind of interesting is I thought I heard two different approaches. One is we could organize by media type or type of resource, and the other one is by kind of a sequential order of the best way to go through resources.
Yeah, and I want to commit to the second one, Scott. The problem is, I don't think we're going to have time to do all of that analysis to come up with it, right? So the easy way to go about this without like super committing, over committing to being able to do all of that really deep teaching and learning analysis is to say that maybe let's not commit to, because we know if it's built in a playlist format, we can come and change the order later on, but it's really important to get the content right. And so I think in view A, option A is the type of media that we discussed before. Option B, what if we went with each of those educator action bullets being the sub-playlist, and then if we have resources that go under those educator actions, we would throw them there. In that way, if we decided to go back and be awesome later, we could change the chronological order of which you would see the educator actions as determined by the developmentally appropriate steps to take. But I really, really doubt we're going to have time to do all that analysis on the front end.
Okay, I got it. Yeah, I like that. But it's definitely gives us a way to deploy meaningful content to for the look fors that they've selected, right? So that's really good. Does it refresh my memory in regard to like the PACEN? How does PACEN work for them? Because I don't think that we would actually. I don't want to say this, but I don't think that there's a pacing consideration that we need to set for this. Okay.
I don't think it's even. I mean, I don't think it's even possible.
Because there's not enough feedback to really be able to get detailed pacing, in process.
No, and this is one where I could totally be wrong, and Tom and Lana and Amalia might have a different opinion, unfortunately. But I think, if we came back and our visuals were much more of the sense that instead of that second bar on their meters, which would be their growth meters, we're not really putting that on there. It's more of just that first bar of their current designation of their score.
Yeah. Okay. So we might change their homepage how it might look, because they don't need as much as the PACEN, but their current score in relation to like their goal, huh? They have a goal.
I don't think that they need. I think that their homepage actually stays the exact same as the learners that we've been talking about. The only thing, if you flip over to a goal meter real quick, The only thing that they lose is they don't see that gray bar. They only see that first bar, which shows basically the breakdown of whether they're a 1, 2, or 3, rather than the growth meter. Right? And that can get pulled over directly from that needs assessment, or directly from the target browser view or the graduate profile view of the LF's capacity. Basically, it's going to list them as a 1, 2, 3, or 4 according to the learner outcome that we're focusing on. And that's what they need to know, versus knowing additionally whether or not they're making the right pace to meet that goal that they set for themselves, because there isn't, even if we were to pretend like we could come up with an artificial pacing for staff development capacity, that would be totally wrong. There are way too many variables to play with there.
Okay. So what I heard was, since we're kind of looking at this through the lens of a single look for, there's really just a score, your current score of what you have for your look for. We have no means of determining pace or even so much growth, because it's only one standard. And
yeah, I don't want to lose the potential, like I don't want to lose the gold dashboard, like the list view growth analysis type of lens, and our ability to go back after, let's say, a year and see who's actually made growth. I want to keep all of the quantitative data sets available to us, but from this lens, they only really need to see whether they're a 1, 2, or 3, or it'll have whatever the learner outcome is labeled, and then under that it'll be their designation of beginning, developing, or emerging, developing, or proficient. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And in fact, those two things don't conflict. We can limit it here to just show the score and still have all of the robustness of the pacing tools outside of this page.
Yeah, that would be great, because we want to make sure that we keep the ability to analyze later in the year who are the people that A, made growth, B, did those align with the goals that they set originally, and C, what, how fast were they making those outcomes. Then maybe 10 years from now, we can come back and analyze whether or not we can determine a pace based off of the learning strategy that they've selected to do. But basically, we'd be trying to artificially create the next 3 years of research on adult growth and capacity development that we don't have right now.
Yep, I got it. That makes sense. Okay. So this becomes a page for them where they have access to some rich resources. They see their current status or achievement, and they are aware of their three goals. And there's really not a whole lot much more they need. Well, there's all this feedback and stuff too, though, right?
Yeah. So to me, if we're still talking about the homepage, or are we moving on to the learning needs one?
Well, I am still talking about the homepage, but I'm trying to encompass some of these other pieces and wondering if they have to poke through to display in this homepage as well.
I don't think so. The needs assessment is more of something that just needs to get done, not something that you need to reference all the time.
Right.
Because all of that is feeding its data to your hypothetical graduate profile for an LF, right?
Right.
So we still need however that visual pops up to learners. We still need that pop-up visual for learning facilitators. Where is my graduate profile, and how do I see that target browser type of lens for all the outcomes? So that's still essential, just like we have with the learner view. The pacing meters are essential. The next 5 things, I think, could just be like the top 5 resources that people are clicking on, or the first 5 educator actions that you could dig into to learn more about, as well as the ability to click down and do the two-dimensional view of everything that's accessible there, which makes it identical to what you're pulling on the learner view.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, but are there, through the year, there's periodic observations? I thought we had a page that showed that, but I don't see it.
We pulled back from all of that because we don't have, and I don't anticipate us changing anything regarding the evaluation process itself,
Okay.
at least for the next 3 years. And to answer that question, we would really need to know, what is our commitment? Are we really going to go through and use the look-fors as an evaluation tool in 3 years? I don't know. But I know I got a strong enough message from Tom that says we're not looking at that for these 3 years. So.
Okay. So here is, from what we talked about so far, I don't see any activities that the adult learner is going to be scored on at all, because we've got resources that they're going to go through. There's going to be a toggling of the overall score itself. I don't understand the evidences, because I thought the evidences were going to be observations. So I don't see any.
I don't evidences either. There is going to be a. How would this work? So we didn't even jump into this side, and we don't have nearly enough time to start talking about this. And this might be the the good conversation we have to have next Tuesday when we meet again.
Yeah.
Which we built out an hour and a half for that meeting too.
Good.
But essentially, so this is all hypothetical, right? But when I do that needs assessment and we agree on the 3 goals that I'm going to use, essentially now we start talking about the whole back end of the human capital side that we didn't discuss before, about how does this all, where's the repository? What does that repository look like? How is that captured? Because this is totally spur of the moment. So if it's stupid, just hold back your laughter. When I designate my 3 goals of learning outcomes, the system is collecting that data and making groups based off of, dropping me into groups based off of my designation of the targets that I'm focused on. And in that way, whoever is designated as the owner of that, of all of this as the LFs, right? So I don't know if that's admin, it's probably admin, right? But my admin would now have groups built of the areas, of the domains or of the specific learner outcomes. And when I drop down into those groups, I can see who has goals. And that's where I would enter on the scoring page as an admin. That's where I would enter activities or document the evidence that they're actually making the proficiency. On an initial concept level, how does that connect?
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So, it's going to require, it's going to require probably that hour and a half on Tuesday, because it poses a lot of questions in my mind. Because there's pieces of these things that anyway, we don't have time to get into it right now. But I really like the decisions we did make.
Yeah, and then if you want an extra fun stretch goal, right? Try and break the way that you were trying to break some of the other stuff today. Try and break the concept of being able to use everything we built at least the 4 through 8 level.
Okay. Yeah.
Because we want that functionality to flow down, and we're saying it's going to be easier, and it is, and it's going to make a lot more sense. So I imagine even if it's probably actually more like 3 through 8, but you get the concept. It's not the K2 interface, but it is an easier interface that our intermediate kids could have, and if it aligns with what they're going to use at the high school, and I don't see any reason why there would need to be a separation of what they see apart from everything that we talked about today. On your fun time, try and break it from that lens, because I think that it can flow and be our 7th and 8th grade promote transfer type of requirement thing just as much as it is our graduate profile.
Do you see there being any kind of equivalent of a course pacing, or is just regular pacing fine?
For the K8s, for the K-8s, their pacing is, it won't, so the only thing that changes the concept of pacing from the K-8s to the high school, right, is that the high school is based off of the course.
Right.
And they're having to adjust their designation of what has to be met based off of a course, whereas at the K-8s, they're building their expected target growth off of what is an appropriate goal for that learner. So it's actually even better as to the model that we're supposed to be exuding. So I don't think that breaks anything, because if I'm a learner and if I've made a half year's growth over the last year, my learning facilitator and I'm on an ILP, my learning facilitator is going to build me an appropriate goal. Therefore, the target growth will still be appropriate. The growth meter still functions the way that it needs to. And as long as I've got my graduate profile view, then I can also see that although I'm meeting my goal right now in this class, I've still got a lot of ways to go to catch up with my overall career.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So I will ponder that lens of it, because I think you're right. I think most of it's going to apply. The difference between the course, because essentially your courses in K-8 are the levels. Those are your courses.
Correct. The difference, though, is that, that's the easiest way to envision it. But the key difference, again, when they're designating that goal, the high school is designating almost a flat goal, and they're saying that flat goal is appropriate for that learner because that learner is only in that course because of where they're learning, the rate at which they're learning. So it's a slightly different angle. Then at the K-8, it's much more of the goal is going to be more flexible. It's built for that learner, even though the course is labeled a traditional grade level type of content. Does that make sense?
Okay. But that should be all accommodated in how they set the goals, right?
Totally. But that's the difference to me between the high school and the K-8. The high school is going to go in and they're basically, for everybody in that course, they're going to say 1.0 equals the goal, right? Yeah. Because they're saying it wouldn't be in this course if it wasn't like this. At the K-8, it's much different in a way that you're going to have some with a goal of a 0.75 and some with a goal of a 1.5. But that shouldn't break anything because all of that is attributed appropriately when it goes into the system. It's not messing with anything that the learners would need to see differently.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense to me. All right. Well, that's probably a good place to stop. I think I do need to just kind of consider the impact of some of the decisions we made. I think for the most part, they're extremely positive, and we'll continue our conversation on Tuesday.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate your time.
Bye.